I'm joined today by Laurent Mercure of Chainsawesome Games. And we're going to be talking about Aftercharge, which is going to be coming up on a alpha weekend very quickly. Thanks for talking to us, Lawrence.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks
Um,
for having me.
yeah, of course. To begin, why don't you give us a pitch in your own words for Aftercharge?
All right, so Aftercharge, it's a 3v3 online FPS in which one team is invisible and the other team is invincible. So how exactly can that work? Is that the goal of the two teams is not direct confrontation. The invisible team actually has to destroy six extractors on the map, 6 points that they need to destroy, and the other team, the invincible team, well, they just have to stop them from doing that. So it's more I'd say it's kind of a cat and mouse game, but with robots in space.
And has one of the best pitch lines I think I've ever heard in
Thanks.
in
That's
my
actually
time.
something I've worked on, so I'm pretty proud of the hook itself.
Yeah, when I saw that come into my emails before PAX, I was like, okay, you've got my attention. So I'll start with that. Where did this idea come from? It's not something I've seen a multiplayer game go the direction of having this something that you would normally think would be some super upgrade or something that would be available to you for a very short time in a competitive game actually be a main mechanic
Yeah,
of the
main
game.
mechanic. Well, there's a story behind of that. Actually, it's kind of a tradition for Chainsawesome Games that we do every year. 48-hour game jam that we have in Quebec City. We have it every year and we go every year. So it's Aftercharge actually a game that came out of a prototype we made during the game jam in 2015. So the idea came pretty quick. It's a 48-hour game jam. So you have to come up with something. Let's try it. So the theme that was given to us for that edition was Unity is Strength. So it's a very vague theme,
Mm.
but the idea at the moment was to create a game in which teamwork is very important. I don't recall exactly how the stealth versus gunners came to be, but all I can say is that we didn't think a lot about it. We just made it happen. We created that prototype during the game jam, and then afterward, uh, well, the team, I was actually not part of the team at that moment, but from what I know, the feedback was really good. It was a fun game, but it didn't look at all like what we've got now. If you know a little bit about what we did as Chainsawesome Games, our previous game, Night Squad, is a top-down 2D game, much more like a party game. Well, actually, Electric Panic, which was the prototype for Aftercharge, looked pretty much like that. It
Mm.
was top down, it was 2D. It was actually two versus three at the moment. It was a game jam game. So not a lot of thoughts were put into okay, what would be the exact best mechanic? We just did it and
Mm.
it worked. And then it was a process of thinking, okay, should we go and market it that way, or should we take what's good about those mechanics and create the game that's more um, commercializable, marketable? So let's try and make it something that would be less niche and more mass market. So that's how Electric Panic came to be after Charge.
Cool. You've touched on like a bunch of the things I wanted to pick your brain on. Let's start with kind of before after charge then. So let's talk about Night Squad. One of, if not the best indie party games out there, if you ask me. Um, what did the process of developing Night Squad and and putting it to market kind of teach you? What did you learn from that whole experience of Night Squad? It's a very different game from
Yeah.
Aftercharge, like you said, but I have to imagine there's some core lessons you learned.
Yeah, well, the backstory of Night Squad is very similar to Aftercharge. It was a prototype made during the exact same game jam 2 years before Electric Panic. So again, the same context, trying to throw mechanics at something that, okay, could we win with something that's as simple as that? Just grab a controller, get in and play. So the prototype performed very well in that game jam, and then uh, the idea to push it to market was encouraged by people saying, "Oh, can I buy the game already?" No, it's just a prototype made in 48 hours. Maybe there's some market potential because people are saying already that. But I think the biggest lesson that was learned through Night Squad was initially just launched on Steam Early Access, and then because the idea of making it online was like a little bit odd, we didn't think it was really necessary.
Mm.
But what changed all of that? So it was initially not online, only on Steam. That's how it ended up to be. The previous game from Chainsawesome Games was only on Steam. The story of Night Squad pretty much ended there, would have ended there, but we won a contest for business models that was also held in Quebec City. It was called Catapult and was a bunch of other developers and marketing people from studios in Quebec City that would evaluate our proposition. So we pitched Night Squad to that contest and we won. And we won with that $50,000,
Wow.
which was used to get out there, which is pretty much the biggest lesson learned through Night Squad is you have to get out. You have to go to shows. You have to meet people, meet important people. So we did a couple of shows with that money, and we got to meet people who made the difference for Night Squad. Were people at Xbox really got into Night Squad really quick, and they said, "Oh, that game is amazing. I want it." So that the discussions went really fast, and Night Squad became uh, became the hit on Xbox One that it was through the Games with Gold program. So that was really, not to make a pun, but the Games with Gold is gold for an indie developer that has no following. It was our second game, but to be honest, pretty much our first game.
Mm.
So we needed to make our name for ourselves and actually make a little bit of money with our games. So that Games with Gold deal made a difference because the game was given to so much people. So we got a lot of exposure. So we were really grateful for Microsoft for that. It made a difference. So the biggest lesson learned through our second game was that you have to think your marketing. You have to get out there. Marketing is an important part of the process of making money with your games.
Mm. So the other thing I really wanted to kind of get some more information on is with Aftercharge's unique setup between the two different teams and you having a different set of abilities,
Yeah.
different main mechanic. How have you guys approached balance in this? And kind of as an addendum, um, why 3v3? I don't normally you see 5v5 games or 10v10s. I think is kind of the more normal
Yeah. It's a
multiplayer.
classic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the classic. Yeah. So how have you approached balancing the two different teams, and why did you decide on 3v3?
All right. So the balancing, to be honest, there's a limit to what we can do without the player community. So what we're doing right now at the studio is a lot of iteration. So we try the game between us. It's a good coincidence that we're actually, well, now we're seven, but when we started working Aftercharge, we were six. So it's a six people game. We're six. Okay, let's play.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the reason why it's a 3v3. I'll get to that. But then what we do is we play a lot of Aftercharge, even though it's always in the making. But balancing is so when we kind of throw ideas around. Okay, maybe we should. This is maybe too strong. Maybe This we need to work on the variables of that ability, etc., etc. For the moment, that we're limited to that because we don't have outside feedback. But we hope that the open alpha of next weekend will help us um, getting some very very important feedback from players because to a certain extent there's a limit of what we can evaluate ourselves. But when the game is really launched, balancing will be a big challenge, and we know it's very important because we want to place Aftercharge and show it as a competitive game, so
Mm.
balance is very important. Let's say that at the moment, what we do for balancing is try to create a climate where we have a lot of variables to work with.
Mm.
So when an ability is too strong for X reason, while we can change it with Y or with Z, we have flexibility in our mechanics. So we're ready to make changes when something is too strong. So at the
And
moment, that's
yeah.
what we do. But we know it's very important, and people are kind of they kind of fear that when they read about our mechanics and our team. Oh, this can't be balanced. Well, we'll try. We'll try very hard to make it balanced. At the moment, it is to our knowledge pretty balanced.
I have to say, from the couple of matches I played at PAX, I was surprised how evenly matched the two teams felt. Even
Yeah,
though
we
they're,
love that.
it's kind of almost like you're playing two different games. When you're playing under the robots,
Yeah.
you're playing the game one way, and when you're playing under the guards, you're playing another. Which is kind of why I asked that question of balance. It seems like two very different styles of play, but it does seem pretty solid at this point, especially for the alpha level you're at.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, I think the biggest problem in our balance is player learning
Mm,
because the learning curves of one side is a lot tougher than the other side. Learning to play the invisible robots, they have a lot of new mechanics, things that you're not used to play with. So you got a lot more learning to do. While playing the guards, well, they feel a lot more familiar. They play like a regular shooter to some extent. So that's why we actually tweak the balance, and that's an exclusive scoop I'm giving to you.
oh.
We're actually tweaking the balance so that the robots are a little bit stronger for the open alpha in theory, because we know that people are not as comfortable with robots, and we feel that if they're just even, robots will be losing all the
Mm,
time. So, because there's so much learning, and we cannot really count on the fact that people in through one weekend will be playing enough to learn the all the strategies and all the mechanics of the robots. We feel that the experience will be better because we force players to be playing the two sides.
mm.
That's important for us, that the experience of Aftercharge is not playing just one side. You have to play both. So if we want it to be fun, while well, we don't want you to lose all the time when you're playing robots. We don't want it to be so at the moment for open alpha. Of course, that won't be the end goal at the end when we release the game in a more competitive setting. We'll be putting a little bit more of the edge on the robots,
Mm.
feeling that since people are less comfortable with them, it's gonna even things out.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So let's shift a little bit from just talking about Afterchurch. What is your background in independent game design? How did you start in the industry, and what kind of drew you to become a game developer?
Well, I don't know if I can have the actual tag of game developer. I work for game developers, and I've worked in marketing and communications for indie games for a while now. I started in 2012. Yeah, 2012. Um, so it's been a while. But I do marketing and communication. So my background is in I studied communications and advertising. I started working on a couple of projects that never came to be, but still you have to do marketing for them. for a studio that actually shut down a year ago in Quebec City. That was my first steps, but I'd say that my biggest learnings were made at Frima Studio. It's a studio based in Quebec City. It's independent, but it's big
Mm.
in terms of a lot of people working there. It's mostly a servicing company, so they do servicing work for a lot of bigger studios, but they have like I say an indie sub department. So we work on games. Maybe you've heard of Chariot.
Yeah.
That was a cooperative game with two people carrying around a chariot, the coffin on wheels.
Mm.
It was a really fun game and was, I'd say, my biggest work was on that game, making a lot of the marketing, but mostly I did community management a lot, um, and PR as well. So I did a lot of work on that game, and then I joined Chainsawesome Games in early 2016. So it's not been that long that I'm part of the team. That's pretty much my background in terms of the rest of the studio, because that's also interesting.
Mm.
Um, the three founders, they all worked on at Frema Studio before and decided they wanted to try that thing of indie development, and they founded Chainsawesome Games in 2012. So I was not at Frema Studio at that moment. So we'll actually it's what in October, so we'll be actually celebrating our 5th year of Chainsawesome Games next week. Um, and what drew them to work on projects was really the creative lead to really create a game that you want to work on instead of working on, for example, servicing projects that were not really that exciting nor indie. So they wanted really to create something for themselves. And yeah, it's been a long journey now since those first the actual first game that was released by Chainsawesome Games was not Night Squad. It was Beat Blasters 3. It was a kind of a you can look it up. It's kind of a rhythm platformer game. It's really original. It didn't perform very well on the market, but it's worth taking a look.
No, awesome. We also really like to ask the people we talk to, because we're all gamers. What are some of the games that have inspired you? Either recently or in the past. What kind of are the games you hold up as this is what I want to produce. This is what I want to be part of.
Well, unsurprisingly, because now we're working on Aftercharge, we're fans of competitive online games,
Mm.
um, fans of FPS. I'd say that biggest inspiration, even at the time for the prototype, David, our game designer, was took inspiration from Evolve.
Mm.
Evolve was, I think, at that point was not released, but was announced, and it's an interesting take of asymmetrical gameplay. So that was an inspiration. Usually, when people ask what are some inspirations for Aftercharge, I always name three. So I name Evolve, of course, as a kind of a first starting point. Okay, let's make something that's asymmetrical, but let's do it right.
Mm.
Because there are some things that Evolve didn't do very well. Um, Notably having one side more fun than the other.
Yeah.
Um, and then another game, of course, that's a game that I actually personally play a lot is Overwatch.
Mm.
So of course the polish that Blizzard put in that FPS is amazing. Of course, we're not a AAA, so we don't expect to be able to do something as polished, but I'd say we look up to them and see what they did right, and we try to take inspiration of a lot of things they do. And another one is surprising because it doesn't look like Aftercharge at all, is Rocket League, in the
Huh.
sense
Yeah.
that it's simple. Of course, Aftercharge is more complex, but it is simple. small teams, small arenas. Gameplay is fast. It's kind of it's a bite size that that's the size we want. The scale we want is
Mm.
Rocket League inspired by Overwatch. You kind of see a thing.
Yeah.
Also, we're trying to we want to use a strategy that Rocket League used as a launch. You launch on PC and on a console. Your crossplay. You kind of create quickly a big community, and they did so much things right. So we want to try to take inspiration on the marketing side. That's what I do.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think those are three good games to emulate.
Yeah.
Um. So finally, we always like to, getting a little cross shout outs between different developers. So, what other indie games, either that have just come out or in production, are you looking forward to? What other indie dev teams are making something cool from your perspective from inside the industry?
Well, of course, the games that I look up to a lot are games that I've seen in development for a while, and I'm close to them. So there's a bit of a personal side on that. We have a couple of Quebec City studios. The Quebec City has a couple of indie studios, and we're all very close to each other. So there's one that's been worked on for a while by Berserk Studio. It's called Just Shapes and Beats.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the marketing guy from Just Shapes and Beats actually did so many shows. So you probably have seen his very loud booth at one show.
It's very
Uh,
hard to miss the just
yeah,
shapes
and
and
it's
beat
it's a great
booth.
game. I'm looking forward to play it. I don't know. I cannot tell you. I don't have a scoop on where when it's coming. It's coming to be released, but I'm looking forward to it a lot. Um, Outside of that, a game that I just acquired for my Switch and I've looked up to try was Thumper. That's
Mm.
again, there's a team there. I like rhythm game. I think they bring them some good beats. So that's a great game. I've recently acquired and I'm really happy about it. I don't know. I couldn't even not even name the studio behind that though, which is a shame. But it's a great game. Right now at the moment, that's pretty much it. I have much don't have a lot of gaming time, unfortunately. So I
What? You don't have a lot of
yeah
game time. You're putting out an alpha to the community next week. What are you
yeah I
talking
would love to have more.
about?
Because these days it's pretty much Aftercharge, top Overwatch, a little bit Zelda on my Switch, Thumper. That's it.
Fair enough. Lawrence of Chainsawesome Games, thank you for talking to us a little bit about some of the design choices behind Aftercharge and your own kind of personal story and some of the inside stories from the development studio. There is going to be an open alpha weekend coming up on the 13th through the 15th. You can find it on Steam. It's free to jump into, so grab two of your friends, get a team of three, and jump in. I don't think you'll be disappointed. We will certainly be on there. So thanks again for talking with us.
My pleasure. It was really fun. Thank you.